right, in 20 minutes or so, the President, Cyril Ramaphosa, is set to address the nation. We've been briefed by the Presidency, 7 o'clock tonight. And of course, we have some idea of what's coming. The President previously said that South Africa would move to a level 3 lockdown by the end of the month, but warning very clearly that there could be hotspots, infection rates could change that for some areas. Let's talk about what we expect tonight. We're now joined by Dr. Somadoda Fikeni, political analyst, as well as economist Lumkile Mondi. Thank you, both gentlemen, for being with us tonight. Somadoda, let's start with you. What do you expect? And put that aside and tell me what you would hope to hear from the President tonight as well.
I do think that the President is likely going to give a clearer signal as to how the relaxation of lockdown is going to be, and also the kind of attention to opening up the economy, because in terms of their explanation, the lockdown and the stringent measures were mainly to make sure that they give the government the chance to prepare. Most important will be whether tobacco and alcohol, which have been the topical issues, will be in the menu for opening. And if any of the two happen to be left out, there'll be quite a huge debate as to how one was chosen over the other, with all, the discussions that we've had from the lobby groups, which have been calling for the opening of that. And the last point, I would like to say that the opening of schools is one largest population group that will be moving in and out of schools. So he may address that. He may also address the concerns about the accountability and transparency on the processes.
Lumkile, moving to you, I guess this would be important for economic watchers. Does everybody move to level 3, or will we see the Western Cape stay on level 4? Will we see districts stay on level 4? That has huge economic implications, doesn't it?
It's got huge economic implication, but I think the President's speech is going to be on economic recovery and reconstruction, and everyone simultaneously moving to level 3. What is important now is to ensure that businesses are ready with all the risk management processes, so that when we reopen on the 1st of June, employees can be tested at the point of arrival, are monitored throughout, and we go back to get our economy going, because we need to drive economic growth so that government can start collecting more taxes to sustain the losses of jobs, the losses of production, and the high levels of indebtedness that South Africa finds itself due to the huge stimulus that we put in ensuring that at least we can maintain lives whilst people are staying at home by paying them salaries.
Do you expect, there's been a lot of concern about vulnerable women who are not in work, and some reports now even that hairdressers, nail technicians, domestic work allowed as well. What do you expect around those softer and I guess close contact professions?
I think those will come in probably in stage 2. I don't think that we're very much ready for personal services at this juncture. I think the lessons that you're going to be learning from opening stage 3 will be very important, so that if we're successful in terms of maintaining productivity, because businesses were ready, then it makes it easier for us to prepare for the stage 2, so that personal services from hairdressers as well as other personal services, people can go back to work and render those services and start earning income. It's too early at the moment to just have a blanket opening where even personal services are rendered, because we need to ensure that the transport services are ready for it, but also businesses. It does take time to prepare itself in moving its employees, because we know that the current public transport services has been a disaster 26 years later due to poor service delivery, inefficiency, and corruption. And so businesses have to support the public infrastructure of transport to ensure that we bring employees to work safely and back home safely as well.
Somadoda, back to you, and you raised the contentious issues of alcohol and cigarettes. There is a draft regulation going around. We've seen that document as well, but it hasn't been verified. Of course, it had to be debated by the National Command Council. It does suggest that cigarettes will not be allowed, alcohol allowed, and you're saying that'll cause more consternation.
It will indeed, irrespective of the fact that both alcohol and tobacco may not constitute a significant chunk, though important, of our GDP as such. But because they are regulated industries, you realize that they do have quite a muscle in terms of lobby, and they may also be interfacing with political leaders. And there's also a suspicion by some that continuing to close the tobacco industry may benefit the illicit tobacco industry, which is happening anyway. So those kinds of debates are not only reflecting the economic reality, but they are also reflecting the political machinations and suspicions behind the scenes.
Well, tell us what you make of the politics of the matter, because it has become political, and we've seen Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, the Kokta minister, as the voice of those regulations, and seemingly, reportedly, a champion for the cigarette ban. But the ANC has been very adamant that she should not be singled out. The presidency has been adamant that she should not be singled out. What do you make of it? Are we seeing factions in the party flexing their muscles around certain policy issues, or has this all been overblown?
Well, I don't necessarily think at this stage it is mainly the factions within the ANC, though you still have those fault lines within the party itself. I think this time around it has come externally from some sectors of the business lobby, some sections of the opposition parties who have singled out Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma for this particular regulation, even though she's presiding on the disaster management because of her ministry. But lost in this particular reflection also is the fact that she had been championing the issue of regulation and stringent regulation of tobacco way back in 1995, but more dominant in the narrative has tended to be the NASREC conference and the fault lines therefore. So for this moment, I do think that it's external to the ANC than it is internal.
All right, Lumkile, we were talking about the sectors of the economy that may open up. That draft document is seemingly quite widespread. Obviously, we don't have restaurants opening up, or bars or taverns. You don't have huge gatherings. But do you believe there's a real impetus around opening the economy right now, around getting people back into work, given the very dire economic projections that are being bandied about?
Absolutely. I mean, the manufacturing sector, due to its multiplier impact across various industries, from the mining, that is the primary sector, all the way to services, becomes a huge opportunity for us. For example, the high impact sectors, such as the petroleum products, the chemical and rubber and plastic, as well as metal products and machinery, become quite critical for us as we reconstruct our economy. But also with our president being the chairperson of the African Union and within the African Continental Free Trade area, I believe that this opening will enable many of our businesses to integrate beautifully and look into the African market in the integration and support our president's endeavor in terms of ensuring that we integrate using our capability, but at the same time create jobs here domestically and strengthen our export earnings in the process of really going and reconstructing our economy and ensuring that at least new sectors do emerge, particularly around the knowledge relating to these industries that I've mentioned. So yes, I think the president understands that, and I hope that business will be ready to go and support this initiative, not only for domestic purposes, but I think for the broader African integration, because this now is Africa's time to use all its resources for Africa's benefit as we move forward as a continent.
What do you expect around retail? I mean, government trying to decide what can be sold, what can't be sold, led to that list that led to some criticism of the minister. T-shirts could be sold, but only if they're marketed under long-sleeved shirts. Do you think we'll do away with those contradictions? Do you expect retail to be opened up?
I think so. I think retail across many areas of retail, from textile, clothing and leather goods, and as well as radio, TV instruments, watches, clocks, etc. That should be opening up. I think the challenge really is going to be the ability of the transport sector to absorb the 10 million or 11 million so South Africans that we expect to go back to work. And that's where the challenge is going to be. It's going to be the absorptive capacity of the transport sector to get people to work. And we expect businesses to really stretch itself as they've done during stage 1 and stage 2, and provide support around moving people, because that's where the biggest risks of infection is going to come from, due to poor levels of our transport infrastructure, which I've mentioned earlier, that are due to just poor mismanagement as well as corruption that we saw across various areas around universal transport services.
All right, we're running out of time, but Somadoda, I'd like to ask from you, what do you expect in terms of the tone from the president? Last time there was something of an apology and acceptance that law enforcement has been heavy-handed at times, and maybe now a need to accept the levels of frustration. People have been isolated for a long time, some people out of work, fatigue perhaps.
I do think that he will continue on that trajectory of being that voice which is coming and reassuring, but also accepting the vulnerability of government in dealing with what is an uncharted terrain. And he might also allude to the logistical challenges of distributing the relief funds, as well as some of the challenges which have been there in trying to implement the very regulations or instructions that the government has given. So to that extent, I think he will continue on that mode.
And will there be a warning? I mean, follow the lockdown regulations, 230,000 people breaching those regulations. Do you think he'll say follow or accept that maybe this is difficult for South Africans, accept the debates around the number, around the heavy-handedness of police, of the military perhaps, the fact that nobody's in jail for state capture, the fact that prisoners are being released as well, while many more are being charged?
I do think that he will still try to maintain the posture he had at the very beginning, that people are already traumatized by this situation. Therefore, there is no need to be further forceful about it, whilst he may just give a positive incentive of praising the South Africans who have obliged, because by volumes, many people have tried, despite the difficulties, to, oblige or to respect the rules as it were.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Somadoda Fikeni, political analyst, and economist Lumkile Mondi. That's all we have time for, sort of the expectations, but we will know if the president speaks at 7 o'clock. We'll find out what he has to say. We'll be back at the top of the hour either way. Weather in the meantime.